A woman from the local HOA storms down to a quiet lakeside, demanding a black man move his boat, claiming he is violating community rules. But what she does not know is that the man she is confronting does not just own the boat. He owns the entire lake. And by the time the truth comes out, it will not be him who has to leave. It will be them. What happens next will leave the whole neighborhood speechless. Power shifts. Secrets surface. And one woman learns that control can disappear overnight. You will not believe how this ends. Stick around till the final twist, because justice, in this story, comes with quiet fury. Hit play, and do not blink. It was a quiet Saturday morning in Willow Creek. The sun had just begun to shimmer on the surface of Lake Hollis. Birds chirped above the mirror-like water. Everything felt peaceful. Until her voice sliced through the still air like a blade. "Excuse me." The man looked up slowly. He was tall. Broad shoulders. Calm expression. Skin deep as mahogany. He was adjusting the ropes on his sleek white fishing boat. The boat rocked gently near the dock. He did not reply. Not yet. The woman approached, arms folded. Short blonde hair. Perfectly ironed tennis skirt. An HOA badge hanging from a lanyard around her neck. "You cannot park your boat here," she said, with that tone. He paused. Tightened one more knot. Then looked up. "Why not?" She scoffed. "Because this dock is for residents only. And this lake is under HOA jurisdiction. You need to remove your boat immediately." Her voice was loud enough for the others nearby to hear. A few older men in lawn chairs turned to watch. Fishing poles paused mid-cast. Children stopped their bikes near the edge of the trail. All eyes now on them. The man stood fully calm. Still silent. His presence alone unsettled her. She shifted her weight. Fidgeted. "You must not be familiar with our rules," she said. He finally spoke. "I am very familiar." She raised an eyebrow. "Well, if you are, then you know you are trespassing. I will have to call security." He stepped onto the dock. Looked her in the eye. "You can call them if you want. But I already notified the county this morning." She blinked. Confused. Notified them of what? He reached into the pocket of his windbreaker. Pulled out a folded document. She leaned forward reluctantly. It was an official letter. County seal at the top. She read the name. Stopped. Read it again. The name on the letter matched the name engraved on the side of the boat. Dr. Lennox J. Mason, property owner. She frowned. "No, this is not right. This lake belongs to the HOA." He shook his head. "Lake Hollis was privatized last year. The HOA lease expired and was not renewed." She stared at him. Speechless. He continued. "I bought the entire lake, surrounding trails, and the western dock. 3 months ago." Silence. The men in the lawn chairs were now standing. Someone whispered. "Is that true?" He pulled out another document. This one thicker. Official. Filed with the county office. She snatched it, her fingers trembling. Flipped through it. Read the bolded line. "Full rights and ownership transferred to Lennox J. Mason." Her mouth went dry. He stepped past her. Untied the last rope. Let the boat drift slightly. Then turned back. "There is more." She looked up, panic setting in. "You are the president of the Willow Creek Fishing Club, yes?" She nodded slowly. Swallowed hard. He pulled out one final letter. Stamped with his lawyer's insignia. As of this morning, the club's access permit has been revoked. Effective immediately. Gasps erupted from the bystanders. One man cursed under his breath. Another looked ready to argue, but said nothing. Karen's face turned red. Not from sunburn. From humiliation. From disbelief. You cannot do this. This is an outrage. He stayed calm. Even kind. I can. And I did. He paused. But if you and your members would like to negotiate a new lease, we can schedule a conversation. She clenched her fists. Her voice shook. You think you can just buy everything? He looked around at the lake. The woods. The stunned faces. Then back to her. No. But I earned everything. And I know how people like you treat those you think do not belong. The crowd went quiet. Still. Even the birds seemed to stop. Karen opened her mouth. Then closed it again. The man walked past her. Stepped onto his boat. Started the engine. The soft hum echoed across the water. He looked back one last time. Next time, you should ask before assuming. And read the signs. He pointed to a new plaque bolted to the dock. It read, Private Lake, owned by L.J. Mason Enterprises. She had never noticed it. Not once. And now. It was too late. The boat drifted away slowly. Its engine barely above a whisper. Karen stood frozen. Staring at the plaque like it had personally betrayed her. The wind picked up. Her HOA lanyard fluttered against her chest. One of the older fishermen, Greg, stepped forward. Karen, is that true? She did not answer. Her eyes locked on the boat as it moved toward the center of the lake. Greg turned to the others. He owns it now. The man nodded solemnly. Karen finally snapped out of it. This has to be a mistake, she said, voice rising again. There must be some legal loophole. I will get the board involved. We will sue. He owns the water, Greg said, almost in awe. Another voice chimed in. Wait, what about the clubhouse meetings? Where are we going to hold the fish fry next week? Karen looked around. The faces once backing her, now filled with doubt. Confusion. Irritation. Someone said, maybe we should talk to him. See if he will rent it back. Karen turned, sharp. No. We do not negotiate with people who. She caught herself. Too late. The pause was heavy. Ugly. The air shifted. She felt it. The way everyone suddenly looked at her. Not like a leader anymore. Like a problem. She tried to walk away. But Greg stopped her with a sentence she would not forget. You embarrassed us today. Then he walked off. Others followed. Some whispering. Some silent. Karen stood alone at the edge of the dock. The boat was now just a speck in the middle of the lake. Dr. Mason cast his line calmly into the water. Free. Unbothered. She looked down at the plaque again. Touched it like it might vanish. But it was cold. Solid. Permanent. That evening, her phone rang. It was an emergency HOA board meeting. The agenda was short. Leadership review. Karen closed her eyes. The birds began to sing again. But it did not sound peaceful anymore. It sounded like the lake was laughing. The next morning, the sun rose over Willow Creek with a strange tension in the air. News had spread. Not just through the neighborhood. But across the county. Someone had taken a video of the confrontation. Uploaded it. Titled it, HOA Karen gets schooled by lake owner. By noon, it had gone viral. Hundreds of thousands of views. Comments poured in. Some laughing. Some angry. Most siding with the calm, composed man on the dock. Karen's phone buzzed constantly. She had turned off notifications, but it did not matter. People she had known for years now looked at her with thinly veiled disdain. Her power was slipping. Fast. She parked her car outside the clubhouse later that day. Took a deep breath. And walked in. The room was half full. Normally, they would stand when she entered. Not today. Greg sat at the front, next to 3 other board members. He did not smile. He tapped a piece of paper in front of him. "Karen," he said. "Please sit." She hesitated. Then walked to her seat. It felt colder than usual. Greg cleared his throat. "We have reviewed the footage. And we have received direct confirmation from the county records office. Dr. Lennox Mason legally owns Lake Hollis and the West Shore properties." Karen shifted uncomfortably. Her voice came out low, defensive. "I was trying to enforce the rules." Greg stared at her. "You enforced them against a man who was the rules." A murmur ran through the room. Karen tried to gather herself. There was no sign. No announcement. How was I supposed to know? Another board member, Helen, cut in. "There was a memo. Emailed 2 months ago. Subject line, change in lake property management, urgent." Karen's mouth opened. Then closed. She had ignored it. Like she always ignored anything that did not come through her channels. Helen added coldly, "We need leadership that reads memos." Greg tapped the paper again. "This is a motion to remove you as president of the HOA board." Karen's heart pounded. She scanned the room. Looking for sympathy. Found none. No allies. No defense. Just quiet agreement. And then. A knock at the door. Everyone turned. The door opened slowly. And in walked Dr. Lennox Mason. Wearing the same calm expression. Holding a folder under his arm. Karen's stomach dropped. He nodded respectfully to the room. "I was invited to observe," he said. "Thought I would bring some updated lease options, in case the club is still interested." Karen stood abruptly. "You set this up," she hissed. Her voice cracked. Dr. Mason raised an eyebrow. "I set up nothing. You made assumptions." "I simply responded." Greg looked at him. Then at the others. "I moved to vote." Hands went up around the table. One by one. Karen stood frozen. Watching the count. All in favor. None against. She felt the floor shift beneath her. And suddenly, everything she thought she controlled was gone. Dr. Mason stepped forward. Laid the folder on the table. Then looked at her one last time. "I hope this teaches you something," he said quietly. "Ownership is not just about property. It is about respect." He turned. Walked out. And this time. The entire room watched him go. Not her. Not anymore. Karen stood there. Motionless. Hands clenched at her sides. Her face flushed with a quiet fury. But no one looked at her anymore. The whispers began again as the door shut behind Dr. Mason. Muted. Sharp. She caught fragments. She brought this on herself. He handled it better than anyone else would have. About time someone put her in her place. Karen sank slowly back into her seat. But it no longer felt like her chair. It felt like a stranger's. Greg cleared his throat again. We will notify the community of the leadership change by evening. And Dr. Mason has offered fair terms to lease back the lake for club activities. Much lower than we were paying before. That got everyone's attention. Even Karen. Of course, Greg added, those terms will need to be discussed with new leadership. Karen opened her mouth to speak. But no words came. For the first time in years, she had nothing to say. The meeting moved on without her. Votes. Schedules. Discussions. She sat in silence. Invisible. Powerless. When it finally ended, she was the last to leave. She walked slowly to her car. The wind had picked up. Leaves skittered across the pavement. She paused. Looked back at the clubhouse. And saw someone already scraping her name off the doorplate. Her fingers trembled as she started the engine. She did not go home. She drove. Past the neighborhood gate. Past the manicured streets she once claimed as her kingdom. Past the lake. She slowed down as she reached the western dock. There he was again. Dr. Mason. Sitting alone in his boat. A quiet figure against the silver water. He looked peaceful. Content. She watched from a distance. Then lowered her eyes. And drove on. That night, her phone rang. It was not the board. It was her son. A quiet voice on the line. Mom. I saw the video. She shut her eyes. Said nothing. He spoke again. Why did you talk to him like that? The line buzzed softly in the silence. She hung up. Turned her phone off. And for the first time in a long, long time, Karen felt truly alone. The house felt colder than usual. Empty. Too quiet. Karen wandered through the living room, unsure of what to do with her hands. The framed awards on the wall, community leadership plaques, HOA service recognitions, now looked like relics from a lie. She pulled one down. Stared at it. Her own smile in the photo seemed foreign. Forced. She set it face down on the counter. Outside, the wind stirred again. Trees rustled like they were whispering about her. Her mind kept returning to his voice. So calm. So controlled. So right. That stung more than anything else. Because deep down, she knew she would never have spoken to him that way if he looked different. She sank onto the couch. Stared at the blank TV screen. Then, she saw her reflection. Eyes red. Face older. Worn. Her phone buzzed again. A new message. It was from Helen. Dr. Mason has invited all residents to a meet and greet this Saturday at the lake. Says he wants to hear what the community needs. Karen blinked. Another message followed, this one from Greg. You should come. Even if just to listen. She sat frozen for several minutes. Then, for some reason, she got up. Walked to the mirror in the hallway. Smoothed her hair. Studied herself. There was no name tag on her chest. No authority in her voice. No crowd behind her. Just her. She whispered to the mirror. I was wrong. The words barely came out. But they came. And somehow, that felt like a beginning. A small one. Shaky. But real. Saturday came fast. The sun was high and golden. The community gathered by the western dock. Children laughed near the shoreline. Neighbors exchanged smiles over lemonade and grilled corn. At the center stood Dr. Mason. Speaking warmly. Listening closely. Karen stood at the edge of the crowd. Unnoticed. She could have turned around. Could have left quietly. But she didn't. She took a breath. And stepped forward. One step. Then another. Each footfall felt heavier than the last. He saw her. Paused mid-sentence. Their eyes met. For a moment, the crowd vanished. It was just them. Karen swallowed. Raised her chin. And said the one thing she had never thought she would say. I came to apologize. A hush fell over the people around them. Dr. Mason nodded once. Did not smile. But did not turn away. She continued. I judged you. Assumed things I had no right to assume. And I spoke to you in a way I would never speak to someone I respected. Her voice trembled. But she kept going. You earned that lake. You earned your place here. And I am sorry for trying to take that from you. Dr. Mason studied her. Then slowly extended his hand. I appreciate your honesty. She took it. The handshake was firm. Quiet. Not forgiveness. But maybe the start of it. The crowd slowly resumed talking. Kids ran past them, laughing. And for the first time in weeks, Karen breathed. Not like a leader. Not like a victim. Just a person trying to do better. And for now, that was enough. As the afternoon sun dipped lower over Lake Hollis, golden light shimmered across the water's surface. The smell of grilled food lingered in the air. Laughter echoed between the trees. It was no longer just a lake. It was becoming a gathering place again. But under new understanding. New respect. Karen sat quietly on a bench near the edge of the dock. Not in charge. Not in control. Just present. She watched as Dr. Mason showed a group of children how to bait a hook. He laughed with them, patient and warm. Neighbors approached him freely now. Not with hesitation. But with curiosity. With trust. Karen looked out across the water. The same lake she once thought she managed. The same lake she had tried to control. Now it reflected something different. A man who had earned it. And a community learning how to change. She stood up. Took one last look at the dock sign. Private lake, owned by L.J. Mason Enterprises. And smiled softly to herself. This place was in better hands now. She turned to leave. Not with shame. But with something new. Grace. Growth. And the quiet knowledge that the strongest people are the ones who learn when to let go. The end.